This guy wins awards. Michael Wilbon. Wilbon, ESPN, pardon the interruption, co-host and NBA Countdown analyst, joins us on the program. All right. Is this Michael the journalist or Michael the Bears fan that we're talking to right now?
God, I don't even know that the journalist. I think he's retired. You know, by the way, I know you know because I know how well-versed you are in all kinds of. You know that was Al Green and not Barry White.
No, but I wanted to be Barry White.
You wanted to be Barry. Why Barry as opposed to Al, Dan?
Well, no, I couldn't sing like Al Green. I could do the deeper voice because Barry White would talk to you when he would be singing. He'd be like,
yes, he would. He would start every time. Very good.
All right, ladies.
Good Barry White treatment.
Yeah.
I guess I got to have the Bears fan. The new Bears president in Chicago, anyway, is my neighbor, and I think we both describe each other as friends, and I'm conflicted about this, obviously, because I'm an alum of one, but before I bled purple, and went to a Big Ten school, I've been a Bears fan since I can remember, so 5 years old. And this is an intriguing hire, and I know I'm glad, which I wouldn't be otherwise if it was the Cincinnati Bengals or some other team. But because it's the Bears, and he's president and CEO, I'm pretty happy for him and for the organization.
Okay, but are you in a good position? You have the number 1 overall pick, and the Bears are interesting for a change, just because they have this decision makes them interesting. Do you keep Justin Fields or do you trade him and take Bryce Young? Reset the quarterback clock.
I keep Justin Fields. I don't need to reset anything. I'm not procedural. I mean, you know me long enough and well enough. I don't give a damn about that stuff. You keep the guy who has shown you he has something in him. And I know he's got to get better as a passer, but I don't like quarterbacks who are like the size of, Kyler Murray. That ain't getting it for me.
Okay.
Now, I know he's bigger than that, but Bryce, who's a tremendous talent. I mean, he's a model. I don't think he could take the pounding. You see the pounding Justin Fields is taking at 6'3", 225 pounds? I don't want my quarterback taking that pounding. I like Justin Fields, and let's use the pick. Let's figure out how to attract and use that leverage and surround him. They got more money than any team, and they got picks. I don't want to hear any excuses from the new Bears GM, Ryan Poles.
Yeah.
Get it done.
Yeah,
this is about scouting now.
If I thought Bryce Young was a franchise quarterback and drastic, an upgrade, absolutely. I would trade Justin Fields. I would get some draft picks back, and I've reset the quarterback contract clock. That helps us. I know we have all this money. Now I got another first-round pick. I send Justin Fields someplace else, and I get a guy who plays the game in a more sustainable way. Justin Fields, this isn't sustainable. It's fascinating.
No, it isn't.
But that's what would worry me, right, Mike, is I think it's like Lamar Jackson. Eventually, you can see all of these injuries piling up. Cam Newton, the injuries pile up. It's like first 5 years or 6 years of a career, we're like, he's unbelievable. Then all of a sudden, nicked up, surgery, shoulder, knee, ankle. I don't want
what, and what makes us think that's not going to be the case?
I don't think he plays that way.
Alabama.
I don't think he plays that way. I think he has the ability.
He had injuries in college. He had injuries in college that Justin Fields didn't have.
He had, but did you watch those Ohio State games? Nobody ever got close to the quarterback, and they had those great wide receivers.
There you go, and that's what the Bears have to do. Make it so.
I know.
I'm serious. That's what. So first of all, he doesn't. What you're proving to me is he doesn't have to play that way. Justin Fields, he completed 73% of his passes as a senior. He can pass he can throw the football. So get a line, which he didn't have.
True.
And get another receiver. He had 2 his rookie year, but he's also played in 3 different offensive systems in 3 years. Let's get some stability and some talent around him. It doesn't have to be sustainable. He doesn't have to and should not be trying to play that way.
You're a buzzkill. We're trying to get excitement here and have people care about the Bears and doing something drastic like this.
So having a great quarterback and winning, you got to trade the quarterback, really? Because all the franchises I see you having buzz about every day for all these years, Dan, the teams have quarterbacks. Nobody's talking about when he was in his third year trading Aaron Rodgers. Nobody was talking about trading Tom Brady. I'm not saying he's going to be great like that. Nobody's talking about trading the kid, Justin Herbert. Put a good quarterback back there. I don't need to trade him. I don't want the Bears to be a clown show. I want them to be a professional football team.
I know you, since you're a Bears fan, then you're not used to rooting in the playoffs. So who's your feel-good team?
Well, I don't know. It's a feel-good, but I have for some weeks now thought the Bengals and Niners are the two teams that will wind up in the Super Bowl. And I don't have any problem seeing Philadelphia, the one seeds, Philadelphia, Kansas City. I don't think there's any argument against them. I just think that the Bengals and Niners are the teams that I think, speaking of at least one of those teams having a quarterback nobody wants to trade for other picks, Joe Burrow. I just think those teams are great. If you give me a championship game in each one of those conferences, Kansas City, Cincinnati, we've seen Cincinnati beat them. And Niners, Philly, I'm going to take the Niners, but those would be good matchups. But Dan, I got to tell you, the playoffs don't start off with a bang. The first round, I'm looking at it. You got two teams, you got two games that are duds. To me, the Baltimore game, I mean, maybe they have a 10% chance. Miami has 0% chance of winning, 0.
Okay.
And so you got two games, right out the box that are duds to me. And I'm looking at the playoffs going, okay, people don't look at the NFL playoffs and they're not discerning. They don't care. They just want their football and they'll cheer for anything. I get that. But I'm looking at it going, they're all rematches. Two of them are duds. Not starting off with a bang the first weekend as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you got the Dolphins game. They're now 13-point dogs, and the Ravens started out at 6.5-point underdogs. They're now up to 8.5. We're talking to Michael Wilbon from Pardon the Interruption. I was watching you and Mr. Tony, and I agreed with Tony on a couple of things. What's going on with Calipari at Kentucky and how they're treating him. Also, if I'm the Rams, I say to Sean McVay, you make a decision here because we got coaches who are leaving. We have to run a franchise. We're not here to, help you get your next job. You're not Belichick. We need you to tell us, and if you want to leave, you want to take a year off, fine, but tell us now. Because we went through this last year. We gave you a contract extension. You owe it to us. We don't owe anything to you. You owe it to us to tell us what you want to do. And if you want to sit out a year, you want to do TV for a year and come back, great. But tell us now.
It'd be a real short conversation between me, if I was Mr. Kroenke, and my football coach, McVay. I would just say you in or out today. Now, in or out. I turn around and walk out the door. He seems like he's got a lot of things potentially working. He's got something on every eye of the stove. Okay. But then I'd be looking for my next coach if I'm the Los Angeles Rams brass. And in terms of Cal, I mean, with Tony and I are in lockstep on both those topics. With Cal, it's like, as I analogize, it's like a pop-up store. John Calipari can set up shop, particularly in the transfer portal era, which we're deep into. He can set up shop wherever he wants, and within a year be in the NCAA tournament, and within 2 be a threat. So, I mean, to hell with Kentucky. I mean, college football fans, college sports fans, football and basketball are the worst. And it's usually college football fans. It's basketball in the bluegrass. But, people are crazy. And, I used Nebraska as an example. Yesterday, they ran somebody out because he went 9-3 too often. They haven't been 9-3 since in the last 10
Frank
years.
Solich. I kept thinking, remember he went to Ohio U and did great at Ohio U with that program. I'm like, Frank Solich wasn't sexy enough for Nebraska, or Nebraska thought they were better than Frank. And I just thought he was, they would kill for 9 wins now, Mike.
Of course they would for the last decade.
Yeah.
And so, Kentucky, this unbelievable. It's not unbelievable. It's believable how spoiled and what egos and what babies as a group they are. So if I'm a Cal, I'd say, you know what? Here's my resignation. How many people wouldn't be after Calipari within an hour? Yeah. He can set up shop wherever he wants and say, I'll be in the transfer portal for a week. Give me some time.
I brought this up. Do we have too much scoring in the NBA? Are there?
Maybe.
I think the NBA has become Major League Baseball, Mike. That it's home run or nothing. It's a 3-pointer or nothing. While I love scoring, I love offense. I never played defense in my life, but at some, I don't think the game is better. I think the numbers are better. I don't think the game is better. Same thing with baseball.
Agree with you.
Home runs are up. The game is not better in baseball.
Yeah. But you know what? It isn't, Dan. And of course, this is why Theo Epstein has been hired by baseball to fix baseball. Because all these things are a television show. That's what they are. And the NBA decided consciously, intentionally, that defense was bad for the product and it wasn't art. And they decided they always go too far. Every league goes too far. The NFL, I'm not going to say the NFL went too far because strategically it's about health and safety more so than the other sports. But look at the NHL. Scoring's at a 25-year high. The NBA, it's at a 50-year high. I mean, you got to go back to, I think it's actually 60. I think it's 1963. So I'm with you. The game is not better. It's a little bit too much. There's no defense at all. They've legislated it out, but the NFL did the same thing. And they all do it for one reason. It's a television show.
Yep.
They wanted to look a certain way on television. That's where this, even though most players don't even know this, this is the primary stream of revenue that makes it go. It's television. And so the NBA has sought to do that, and baseball's doing it. Baseball's trying to do it. They got to get action back in the game, and that's what Theo's charged with, the responsibility, the task. He's charged with it. They're all at the same time trying to figure out how to be more appealing on television. And in the process, I trust Theo to come closer to getting it right personally than others, because basketball just doesn't have. There's no. Can you imagine? I mean, Charles Oakley in today's game, he would just stand on the floor and shrug and say, "What is this? What are we doing here?"
Yeah. Well, he wouldn't have a role.
No, they wouldn't even bring him in. They wouldn't sign him. They say, "Look, can you put you on a 10-day? You're not a stretch four. You're a power forward. You're a stretch. We're not a stretch four. I'm not sure we can have you." It's a weird thing. And so, Dan, look, you've covered as many playoff years as I have. Maybe you think there's a chance. Is there some correcting that can go on by the time we get to the middle of April, in your opinion?
No. Like, how would they correct
You
it?
don't see it. Start calling start allowing people to, and maybe, you know what, maybe the instincts are so removed from the game right now that maybe there's no correcting. But I mean,
Mike, I had the commissioner on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I said to Adam Silver, can you call carrying? Like, how did it get to the point where, I mean, it's egregious. Right. And you can't guard, you cannot guard anybody. If they have that much athleticism and you give them that much of an advantage of, I get to carry the ball.
Agreed.
How did we get from Allen Iverson and John Stockton carrying it to now everybody carries it, Mike?
Everybody. Well, Dan, they are cracking down. Like last night, just watching 3 or 4 games, sampling 3 or 4 games, there were a lot of traveling calls. I mean, I saw a half dozen in like 2 hours. So they made that adjustment with traveling. So do it with carrying the ball.
Exactly.
Palming, as we used to call it in the old days.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you. So if you can make those kinds of adjustments on the fly, maybe there's some hope. It becomes a little bit more of a slow dance once we get to mid-April anyway. I'd like to see some. Look, if you can't defend Giannis, that we're gonna have a bunch of 50-point games in the playoffs. And as far as I'm concerned, and it sounds like we're in agreement, those things are devalued. They're not like 50-point games in the 80s or the 90s or even the aughts. They're not even like Kobe's 50-point games because there's no resistance put forth to stop them. So what the hell are they used? I mean, what's the value of them?
We wouldn't do well on Pardon the Interruption. We agree too much.
Tony and I agreed on those topics yesterday. We could just be loud getting there. There doesn't have to be fundamental disagreement. We could just be loud getting there. I don't even know what we're talking about today. I don't know that we'll have topics that are as easily agreed upon as Calipari and some of the NFL stuff. But, it's just interesting. We're both old men, get off our lawn. And I don't know that we're going to have a lot of disagreement about
Mike,
things
all
the
else
next week
fails,
going forward.
talk about the Cowboys and talk about LeBron.
But you know what, Dan? I don't know that we're going to have that much disagreement on that, given what LeBron is doing right now. And the Cowboys, we could have plenty of disagreement. I don't know what to make of them. It's just too much made of them. We're the only show that does not come in every day saying, okay, the Cowboys are on the rundown. We're not. Every other show on the network is. And sometimes SportsCenter will call and say, can you guys talk about the Cow? And we say, no, we're not doing that. Not doing that.
Yeah. Well, hey, having been there at SportsCenter where it felt like every night, you got to talk about this. You got to talk about
Yes.
Wait, Duke basketball? I mean, they're playing Vandy. Why do we have to talk about Duke against Vandy? Well, Coach K.
Well, it shows you, though, Dan, some things can disappear. Because Duke basketball, at least for now, has.
I watched them.
It's sort of surprising.
Yep.
And I don't know. You got to give anybody time for adjustment. But look, we knew that was going to be a hard follow. You and I are old enough to remember, people, two coaches specifically, and even though their records were great, trying to follow John Wooden. Maybe it's an impossible task. It's going to really bear watching. College basketball, sadly, I know this must hurt you, having played it at a real level. It's a 6-week sport now, Dan.
Mike, do you know who the favorite is?
Into the Super Bowl.
Do you know who's the favorite to win the national title?
Who?
Houston.
I could have sounded smart by guessing Houston. I watched Houston play once early this year. They barely beat Virginia. I watched them one game. But Dan, we don't know. Something that used to be obsessive in the culture, in the sport culture. If you were a sports fan, you had college basketball on your radar not long after Christmas, and it stayed there till April 1st.
Yes, because
now we've cut the first 6 weeks off.
We knew the players. They came back for a sophomore year or junior year.
There's that.
Yeah, the familiarity. We've lost the familiarity of college basketball. Football, you're locked in for 3 years. Even if you transfer, you're still in the sport itself.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
We can find you.
Hey,
we can find you after you emerge from the transfer portal.
Are you and Tony attached that when you retire, you both retire at the same time? Have you discussed that?
We have not. That wasn't even on my radar for 10 years, and it's on my radar. Tony, you know him. How can he retire? If he has 3 days off, he's calling the producers for 2 of them to suggest show topics. He can't function without work. I can.
Well, I don't know if
Mr.
Tony, if you'd call that work, Mike, because he's in his attic or basement or whatever room, and he's only there for 22 minutes, and then you guys are done.
No, he's there on camera for 22 minutes.
Yeah,
he's there for a lot longer.
But he does do his podcast. I know that. Hey, I would never let that job go. But Mr. Tony,
podcast?
No. Well, I love doing the show every day. But PTI, if I'm in assisted living, I would be doing PTI there. They would be feeding me. They'd have to help feed me, change my diaper, and I'd still be there doing PTI if I could.
There's some people who may suggest we're way too close to that already. but listen, as long as he can take a break and go play golf every day, then he probably could do it. But no, I don't have to. I don't think I'm as tied to anything as I was 6 years ago. And maybe that's because I'm an old man chasing around a freshman in high school who's got basketball practices and games and AAU. Dan, I'm 64 years old going to AAU games.
I like it.
And the coach will come out, and, the visiting coach will come out and say, hey, can you come over and let's have a chat? And you're here with your grandson, right? And I want to take a swing at the guy. Say no.
Good to talk to you, Mike. Maybe we'll cross paths in Arizona. Wait, are you leaving Arizona when the Super Bowl gets there?
I'm there because the countdown is there all 3 nights that week, and so I'm around. So
Okay.
they have clubs. Will find me.
Are you allowed to
I
go
ain't that
out?
hard to find.
Are you allowed to go out?
That's a good question. There's so much stuff going on. Dan, I would like to, but I don't know that I can pull it off. I sound like Tony now, but I would like to. You know what?
Okay.
The bad part, Dan, is that the West is cold now. I mean, it's cold and rainy. I was in California Christmas Day. Okay, it was 80. Since then, there have been highs in like around 50 degrees. It all feels like San Francisco. So I'm hoping that stuff goes away. Arizona's been the same way. I'm hoping that stuff goes away.
Guys, let's all pray for Michael Wilbon.
Thoughts and prayers.
Here we go, please.
Yeah. Boy,
please, just short of a GoFundMe. Come on now.
Yeah, if they go F you, not go fund you. Yeah. Mike, thanks for joining us as always, buddy.
Dan, thanks for having me, man.
That's Michael Wilbon. Pardon the interruption. Take a break. We'll close up shop after this.